most male dementia residents are pleasant to the other female dementia residents, and there's not a problem. Sometimes they do confuse other women for their wife. There was one example where one of the male dementia residents thought that this other woman was his wife when she wasn't, and he'd want to sit by with her and be with her, but he was a very pleasant, courteous man, so it really didn't pose any problems. There was also another gentleman who was lonely, wanted someone, and this other female dementia resident was convinced that he was her husband and treated him with the utmost adoration. My husband wants a cup of tea, my husband needs more toast, my husband needs this, that and the other. And he was treated very well by her. She was a good communicator, articulate, and he wasn't. So it served him well to have her there. She liked his company more through, though he didn't speak very much, but still she liked him. And actually it all worked out. There was not a problem. But sometimes, not often, there can be a male dementia resident who harasses other female dementia residents. Now this, of course, is not at all good. There was one dementia resident who we had at the unit, a male, tall, strong, big man, and he was just inappropriate. And it was really difficult for the other women in the unit, really difficult. And the staff would try their best to sort of separate him from the other women, because he'd just go for any woman and just be all over them. And the staff would try and separate him from other women, but of course, you know, they're having to do their work. They're up the corridors doing the cares or around the station doing the medications. They can't be always in the lounge where the women sit by the TV and where this man used to go to try and really prey on the other women. And so in the end, what actually happened was that the women defended themselves and their friends capably. Actually, they'd just yell out and say, you know, we don't want you, she doesn't want you, get out, please, it's not suitable. But mainly they'd just say that we don't want that, leave her alone. And you have enough women saying that to you and you'll calm down all right. It will cool the system. So if you have a friend who's assertive and who is can capably call out on behalf of you that you don't want this behaviour or that behaviour from another male dementia resident, or you're assertive enough to say it yourself, then you know you're safe, pretty much safe, especially in a public situation. But it's those women who are quiet, timid, shy. You know, when you get a man like that coming around and wanting to kiss you on the cheek, and it's just all so unpleasant. It really does help if you have an assertive friend or an assertive group around you that can tell that man to, you know, get off, get away. And if it's a healthy group, well socialized, they will call out. And the other men, the other male dementia residents as well, will come to the party and get the guy to just remove himself. But the men that are like that are just, well, I've only actually witnessed one really bad example of this. And he was so dominated with his whatever thoughts he had in his head. And he just thought he was Prince Charming, I think. You know, he used to call everyone dear and love and all the rest of it. And, oh, dear me. And actually, that's not a problem saying that, because actually most of the men say dear and love to the female dementia residents and to the staff, female staff, but they're pleasant with it. But it's the sort of lecherous type behaviour along with that is the problem, you know, unwanted advances. And he wasn't really well liked by people. So in the end, actually, he became aggressive as well. Sometimes that happens hand in hand, inappropriate behaviour plus aggressiveness, and he had to leave the unit, but he didn't have the insight of his behaviour at all. And his family were very meek and mild. They had no control over him. You could see when they came, they were also slightly afraid of him, which is not a good situation. So it was a sad situation. He went on to another facility, but those women at the dementia unit were exposed to his, you know, unwanted advances for about 6 months. They had to cope with that. Thankfully, they had one strong woman in the group who was really assertive. She'd been a sportswoman in her day, a great netballer, and big, busty, strong, assertive type. And she had no trouble telling him to sort of get off, get away, and we don't want you around. And that helped the group. But I mean, there's not that many women like that, but she was extremely good at helping to protect those that were in a vulnerable situation. It is important, you know, like, because there are people in dementia units that can either be aggressive or unwanted advances or whatever behaviour's going on. And you as a relative just really need to be mindful of that. It's not just, you know, safe and sound, all care's done, everything okay at a dementia unit. I mean, it can be a very risky, you know, dicey place. And so as a relative, look out for that. Encourage and see any opportunity where your mother, for example, can make a good friend, because that always helps. Your friend will speak up for you. Going to the activities, being part of a group is important, just so, you know, your relative's not isolated, sitting in the corner way back somewhere. Then anyone can come along and think they can do anything some of the time. You don't want your parent being exposed to that for sure. So it's not common, but I just needed to outline this so that you're aware of the situation, so that when you visit, through the grapevine, you'll hear various things from other relatives, maybe from residents as well. Just, you know, take it seriously in a sense, and make sure that whatever is in place needs to be in place for your parents so that they can be safe emotionally and psychologically at a dementia unit. I mean, yeah, it's, but I must say actually in conclusion here, that the women actually, you'd expect the women, the dementia residents, female dementia residents, to be more affected by this than what they actually were. They were actually quite assertive, most of them, and they'd just speak up loud and clear that they didn't want the behaviour and just get away, we want nothing to do with it. You'd think they might be a little more intimidated than what they were, but actually they weren't, interestingly enough. I mean, the odd one may have been intimidated, especially a new female dementia resident who doesn't know anyone. They're a lot more vulnerable, but the good solid group, they were assertive, and they didn't kowtow. They weren't intimidated as much as you would think they might be, but still, especially if your parent is going new into the facility, it's very important then that these things, that they're not exposed to this sort of behaviour, because then it is intimidating when you haven't got to know anyone, you haven't got a friend, you don't know about the place or the people or what's going on. Yeah, and if you're confused with the dementia, so many layers and levels, that's when that protection is really needed in that first 2 or 3 months for your parent, until they get a friend and they get to know the group and get established. So I've written about these I've written about these topics at length in the 2 books, The Resident's Voice, Everything You Need to Know for a Relative Coming into a Dementia Unit, Resident's Rise, Problems Coming Up in a Unit and How to Help with Practical Positive Techniques. Both on Amazon, both on my website, pietavalentine.com, description below. Now, thank you for your looks and likes and comments. I just want to say here, I'm planning to come to Australia to do a retreat on these topics. And for those of you out there who have subscribed to the channel, my channel, both TikTok and YouTube, I would really love to meet you. And if you'd like to come to this day retreat, it would be fabulous. It's in Baxter, it's Melbourne, and I'll give you all the details in my description below soon. But just to let you know, anyway, I'm coming to Melbourne. I'd love to meet you. I'm doing a retreat there, maybe a day retreat, maybe a weekend retreat. We're sorting it all out now. Frankston, that's what it is. Frankston South, Melbourne. And I think it's Stotts Road or something. But I'll give you the details. It's a beautiful facility, very Australian, very picturesque, you know, Australian bush, relaxing, beautiful. Okay, so thank you.